Welcome back, everybody. It is time for Silver and Black today here. We are an Odyssey original podcast. We appreciate you guys being with us. Raider Nation, what is up? It is week 1 in the NFL. Are you ready for some football? Of course you are. You are. There's no question. Everybody's ready for real football. And so am I. Scott Gulbransen, your host, along with my co-host, Mr. Moton. He is the national NFL writer for Bleacher Report, as well as being the Raiders columnist for Sportsnaut. Here we go, Mo. We finally get to do it for real.
It's about time. So these shows actually count right now. Not like the other shows didn't count, but these shows count differently as far as regular season talk and wins and losses. So let's get to it.
Yes, and so I have to be honest. I am not somebody who likes to do predictions that often. Now, Mo, I know you do them a lot in the written form. You just this past weekend, when everyone else was enjoying Labor Day, you were toiling on your predictions across the entire league with your colleagues over at Bleacher Report. And I just kind of I used to do them and I just kind of stay away from them. But every year I get dragged back in. It's like, Pacino in Godfather 3, they pull me back in. Yes. So the fans, they just want to hear what we think. They want to know kind of how we think this season will unfold. To me, there's so many unknowns. Right? It's not a cop-out. It's not I'm afraid to put my numbers down. I have every year. But it's just the fact that there's so much between now and the end of the season that we don't know. But we here at Silver and Black today always like to listen to our listeners and make sure that we give them content that they would like. So that's what we're going to do. Mo, doing this from across the league, you did all the teams, of course, including the Raiders. When you go about it, is there something that is there a formula you adhere to, or do you just go team by team, knowing what they did in the offseason and covering them, and then sort of say, okay, here's how I see the season unfolding?
Well, first of all, you have to make sure the numbers add up. You want to make sure your wins and losses add up to the total number of games played. So that's the first thing I do. And the second thing is, as you said, it doesn't sound like the magic wand that a lot of people want to hear, but I cover the league all year round. So I keep track of all the moves that teams make, from the draft, free agency, late pickups, undrafted free agents that make the team, guys that could be traded or moved. I look at coaching staff changes, teams that have hired new coaches, new staffs. What is their philosophy? How do the players on the roster fit their philosophy? Do they fit? I look at history. Does the team have a history of tailing off at the end of the season, like the Raiders were under John Gruden before he resigned? Does the team have a tendency to finish strong? I look at weaknesses and strengths of a football team. Are they a good pass defense? Are they a good run defense? Do they have a quarterback, a transcendent quarterback? Do they have a Josh Allen, a Justin Herbert? Those things all matter. And then, again, not going to sound like the most fabulous thing, but I actually go through each team's schedule one by one, and I look at what teams does each division play. So let's say, for example, the AFC West has to play the AFC South. The AFC South is a relatively weak division because I think the Titans are going to drop. Mm-hmm. So the AFC West team should have a lot more wins than a lot of other divisions that are going to play, let's say, the AFC North, where you got the Ravens and the Bengals and the Browns. Deshaun Watson's out, but still the Steelers should be competitive. So who do they play? Do they play a weak division? If they play a weak division, usually I add 1 or 2 wins. If they play a strong division, then the wins may drop a little bit. Maybe I take a win or 2 off here and there.
Yeah, that's a good approach. I mean, listen, that's the thing, is you have to look at kind of everything you know today. And of course, when you make predictions, there's so many things that happen that are just so ridiculously unpredictable. And the biggest of all is injury. I mean, you just don't know. And always, it seems like every week one, there's one major injury on one team that completely changes their destiny for the whole season. Knock on wood, I hope that doesn't happen to anybody, because that means somebody got seriously hurt, and we don't want that. But I do think that one thing I like to say when we do these shows is that, number one, we're talking to Raiders fans. Mo and I don't go through these with the fan lens on. So we don't sit there and want them to go 17-0 and win the Super Bowl. Even if we think they can do that, we would tell you that, okay? But I do want to say that because I think there's going to be differences, I think, in what Mo says and what I say as far as what the record will be. But you have to put that lens on. And you may disagree with some of the games, because we're going to go game by game here. You might disagree with some of the games or some of the points we have to say, and that's cool. we love, and this past week again, people disagree. I did a piece up on Sports Not, stock up, stock down. Of course, I had stock down was Darren Waller and John Simpson. They're like, well, not Simpson. It should be cut, and Simpson's fine. I said, well, no, that's just how I see it. Like, you don't have to agree, right? And I think that's what we're going to see with the schedule. But we always do this, I think, with the point of view of what we believe to be true. Doesn't mean it'll happen that way, but it certainly is based on an objective point of view on that. So that's just what I say up front. Go ahead, Mo.
One thing I want to say too, and you hit the nail on the head with one of your early points. We're not looking at this Raiders schedule to say how do the Raiders win this game, because that's how fans look at it. How can the Raiders beat this team, and how would they win? We're looking at it as, what are the Raiders' strengths? What are their opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and how do we think it's going to happen? We're not looking at it from an optimistic point of view. We're looking at it from an objective point of view.
Correct.
The other thing I want to say to fans really quick is, fans always say, well, the Raiders got better, so the record should be better. And I get into this debate, and not an argument, but a debate with fans every year about this. Just because the Raiders improve doesn't mean the record is going to be better, because you're playing a different schedule, which means the strength of opponent is going to be different. The other thing is, the Raiders aren't the only team that improved over the offseason.
Right.
Believe it or not, most of the league, if they're not positioning themselves for a high draft pick to get a quarterback in 2023, 75 to 80% of the league has also improved over the offseason, not just the Raiders.
That's right. That's right. And that's key to remember as we head in now too. So here, oh, by the way, thank you for subscribing. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you can, wherever you listen to your podcast. Most of you, we know from the data, do it on an iPhone. You can do it on Apple, iTunes. You can do it on the Odyssey app, wherever you get it. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'll tell you what, Mo and I just love the chat. It's incredible. You need to get on. So if you haven't gone on and watched the show on YouTube, do that, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bells for us so that you're reminded. But if you're watching us, we have the schedule up now on the screen, and we're going to go through and start taking a look at this. Of course, Mo, let's start off, and I'm going to keep tally here so that when we get to the end, we can summarize where you're at, where I'm at as far as record goes, plus maybe a little playoff prediction if you believe they're going to make the playoffs, that is, of course. So we'll get to that one in a minute. But, Mo, the game, and we're going to preview the Charger game with our good buddy Nick Cothrell from Sports Illustrated, a former Silver and Black Today staff writer himself and been a guest on the show many times. He covers the Chargers now for Sports Illustrated. He's the publisher of that website down there. We're going to talk with him on Thursday's show to do the formal game preview, of course, of Week 1 against the Chargers, which is the first game we have to look at here now, Mo. Okay, so Chargers in Los Angeles.
Really quick.
Go.
If Nick is hearing this, you're a traitor, Nick, for going over to the other side.
You're a
but go
traitor.
ahead, Scott.
Oh, yeah, like me growing up a Charger fan, remember?
Both traitors.
It's so funny, too, because, remember where Al Davis got his start. Remember what team he coached with? Yeah,
that's true.
The Chargers. Anyway, but so we move on to Week 1. Now, Raiders go down to Los Angeles, down to the Rams Stadium where the Chargers happen to play. And this one, I think the entire NFL is excited about, to have a matchup like this with not only the Raiders and everything they had going in the offseason, Mo, but, of course, the quarterback battle always, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, and it's an AFC West rivalry, a big one for the Raiders and Raider Nation heading into Week 1. You look at this game, the Raiders, like you said, have gotten better. So have the Chargers. Chargers got better. You see a familiar face across, and no matter how many times Raider fans want to say Khalil Mack isn't what he used to be, he's still Khalil Mack. He can still find it. He's still a talented player. You look at this game on the road, technically, and it's a tough way to start. Mo, when you look at this one, I actually think that this will be a battle, and it's going to be a close one. What's your take on it? Do the Raiders go to L.A. in Week 1 and come away victorious?
Okay, I'm going to start off on the sour note. Raiders fans are not going to like this, but Week 1, you're going against Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Those guys are both healthy. Going against that offensive line, which I am still concerned about, I think that's tough to go from what the Raiders had in the preseason playing their young guys, and you saw some struggles here and there, mostly without Colton Miller, of course, but still, you're going against Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa while healthy. That's a tough task for that offensive line, that young offensive line that has to gel, that has to grow and develop. So I think there's going to be some issues in the passing game for the Raiders, Derek Carr is going to have to revert to the quick passing game, but I don't think that's going to be enough against the Chargers. The Chargers passing offense is going to be electric with Justin Herbert, and he's going to test that young cornerback group with Rock Ya-Sin and Nate Hobbs. Not worried too much about Nate Hobbs, more worried about Rock Ya-Sin. I am not sold on Rock Ya-Sin, full disclosure. So I think the Chargers are going to win this game, but I agree with you. It's going to be close, but I think the Chargers win by field goal. So if you're a betting man or woman, take the Raiders to cover the line, but take the Chargers to win the game.
All right, there you go. Week 1, Mo has the Raiders starting off with a loss. Yes, he's the evil one all of a sudden for some of you out there, but no, it makes sense. Now, I have a little bit of a different view. I actually think that the Raiders go to LA and they win against the Chargers and kind of set the tone for what can be an early part of the season, especially the first 3 weeks where they can make a statement. I also agree it's going to be tough. We will learn about this offensive line. This offensive line, the Raiders have not made any changes to. Okay, they haven't gone out and signed a big veteran. They haven't. Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, they're taking the Vegas dice and they're just rolling them, baby. And they're like, hey, we're going to do this and see what happens. So that concerns me with Mac and Bosa, no question. But I like Derek Carr and this Raiders offense against that Chargers defensive backfield. If he can get the ball, if he can get the ball out and they can protect him, I like the matchups with Renfro, with Adams, with Waller against that Chargers defense. Yes, they have some talent back there, but I do think there's some question marks, and I think the Raiders can exploit it. So I'm going to take the Raiders, and this is going to be a really tight one, and I think the Raiders, of course, they're going to beat the spread. They're going to cover, but I'd say the Raiders win by 1 in this game. So it's not even going to be a field goal. It's going to be one of those wacky AFC West matchups. So I have the Raiders winning that one and going to 1-0, and Mo has them at 0-1. Real quick question, Mo. This past week, and we've seen all the rankings of players, which fans get just tremendously emotional about. A lot of people talking about Justin Herbert as one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I see a lot of Raider fans, including our listeners and viewers, who talk about he hasn't done anything. You can't just rate a guy on potential. I say, why not? You say a guy hasn't done anything. Well, he hasn't been to a playoff game. He hasn't won a playoff game. I know another guy who hasn't either. Right now, he's got more years in the league. But where are they wrong when they underestimate how good Justin Herbert can be?
I think they're lumping Justin Herbert's potential or production with the team's success. So what you have to do with a quarterback is you have to separate the quarterback from the team. And as you pointed out, fans have been doing this with Derek Carr for many, many years. Derek Carr hasn't won a playoff game either, but is that totally his fault? A lot of people will say Derek Carr is a top 10 quarterback, but the Raiders haven't done much. But you have to separate the quarterback from the team. And if you watch Justin Herbert play the game and just forget what the Chargers' record was because their defense was absolutely atrocious, you would know that Justin Herbert is the real deal.
Yeah. Yes. I know people don't want to admit that, but that's the way it goes. All right, on to week 2. Raiders come home to the Death Star, to Las Vegas, in the county of Clark to play the Arizona Cardinals along with Kyler Murray and his new big contract. Cardinals, I thought they were going to do it last year. They kind of faltered coming into this season. I think they're a little better off. They do have some injuries and some question marks. But when you look at this game, first game to start this season at home, this Raider Nation crowd has been through 1 year at Allegiant Stadium. To me, year 2 will be even better from an atmosphere and a culture standpoint. How do you see this one coming out?
Yeah, I have no doubt saying that the Raiders should and will win this game. No DeAndre Hopkins, who's suspended for the first 6 weeks. So they get a break there. I know Marquise Brown has a rapport with Kyler Murray, but one receiver and Rondale Moore not going to cut it. Zach Ertz is a little banged up. So their offense isn't going to be as electric as the Raiders' offense. The other thing is the Cardinals lost Chandler Jones, who's now with the Raiders. So they lost a little bit of their defense and their pass rush. The Raiders gained to their pass rush. You know, some people quibble about, is he an upgrade of a Yannick Ngakoue? Doesn't really matter in this situation because I think Chandler Jones is going to be motivated to play his former team opposite Max Crosby, and they're going to wreck that Cardinals defense and outscore the Cardinals by a pretty decent margin. I give the Raiders winning by a touchdown there at home.
I feel that way too. In fact, I think I'm going to take the Raiders by 10 as they move to 2-0. Okay, on to week 3. The Raiders then will go down to Nashville. They go to take on the Tennessee Titans, and our buddy Murph will be there as well as I'm going to try to get down there. We'll see if I can get down there. But the Titans, Mo, when you look at this one, Titans have really fallen fast. If you look at everything they've done, yes, they have Derrick Henry. Tannehill seems to be on the downslide after getting his big deal in a couple of years where they just couldn't put it together in their little window that they had in Nashville at Nissan Stadium. I look at this one too, Mo, and I like the Raiders going on the road and winning this one by a field goal. How about you?
Raiders usually fare well against the Titans. I think they will again this year. You mentioned it. I had the Titans, and I said at the beginning of the show, I had the Titans slipping. I know they were the 1 seed last year, and they still got Derrick Henry, but remember, Todd Downing is their offensive coordinator. I just can't get over that. And the way, how he ran the Raiders offense, I know he was younger then. This was 5 years ago, but he's still, to me, I shouldn't say awful, but one of the bottom tier coordinators in the league. They lost their top pass rusher in Harold Landry towards ACL. So they lose a piece of their defense. Their offensive coordinator, to me, bottom tier. Raiders win this game on the road.
There you go. So Mo has the Raiders at 2-1 after 3 weeks. I have them at 3-0. Yes. See, who says I'm pessimistic? Okay. So 3-0, 2-1. They then go back to Las Vegas. One on the road, one at home, one on the road, one at home. And they face their AFC West rival and Mr. Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos coming into that game. The Broncos, a lot of Raider fans don't want to give them credit. A lot of Raider fans want to write off Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is still a premier quarterback. I think Russell Wilson can create problems for any team he's playing. He's healthy. The Broncos have some wide receivers that they're missing, but the Broncos team is not bad. Although I would say the Broncos, for me, Mo, I look in the division, they're the team I'm most unsure about. I just don't know. They could be very good or they could falter and kind of be middle of the road. But I think this game will be tough on the turf at Allegiant Stadium. How do you see it coming up?
Yeah, I have the Raiders win this game at home. I think even with all the parts that they have, I know they brought in Randy Gregory. They brought in, as you mentioned, Russell Wilson. Cortland Sutton is healthy. Jerry Jeudy is healthy. They don't have Tim Patrick, who tore his ACL. Greg Dulcich, the rookie third-round tight end, is out. He's going to be a pass-catching threat once he's healthy. Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon duo in the backfield. So this is going to be a tough game. But I think all of those pieces together, those new pieces, along with a coaching staff that's inexperienced. Nathaniel Hackett, I know, has been a play caller, but he's never been a head coach. The defensive coordinator, Everard, I believe his name is, has never been a coordinator in his career. I believe he was a defensive backs coach and a safeties coach. Even their offensive coordinator under Nathaniel Hackett has never been an offensive coordinator. So that's going to take some time to gel. So I think it benefits the Raiders to play the Broncos early in the season because they're still going to be working through things. And I think the Raiders win this game at home.
I do as well. And not only that, but if they were to win that game against Denver, I have them at 4-0. And it surprised me because when I sat down to think about this, I was really worried about the first 6 weeks, well, 5 weeks because you have 6 week bye, and then they have that stretch later in the season, which is brutal. But to me, I think this is the time when the Raiders really come out and do well. They get that game at home against the Broncos. They dispel the second AFC West team that they can in the first 4 weeks, which I think sets this team up for well. I think they will have challenges, as I'll get to later down the road, but I actually like the Raiders in this game against the Broncos at home. All right, and then we go to week 5, Mo, and week 6, of course, is a bye, and we're going to take a break after we get through this one. But this one's a tough one. You're going to Kansas City, and I know Kansas City, Tyreek Hill no longer there. They have all kinds of questions, new offense put into play. Patrick Mahomes has a lot to prove. The Raiders go into Arrowhead, and I just don't see, even at 4-0, as I have them, I think this game is going to be a tough one to grab. I think the Chiefs and the Raiders split, and I think the Chiefs win this one early in the season at home.
Yeah, we're in agreement there. I think the Chiefs take it at Arrowhead. I know, as you said, I know they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, but they have multitude of weapons. Juju Smith-Schuster, Miko Hardman, Sky Moore, Marquise Valdes-Scantling. None of those guys are Tyreek Hill, but together, I think it's hard to crowd all those guys because Patrick Mahomes, as good as we think he is, he's going to be like a point guard. He's going to be like primetime Steve Nash distributing the football all over the field. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to defend that. And again, I'm not quite sold on Rock Ya-Sin yet. I like Nate Hobbs on the outside, but I'm not sold on Rocky Ya-Sin. If you've been listening to the show, I'm a big fan of Anthony Averett's game. But that secondary is going to have to grow up very fast, and they're going to be tested against the Chiefs even without Tyreek Hill. I think the Raiders fall by maybe 5-6 points. It's going to be a competitive game, but Chiefs take it.
Yeah, and with that Raiders defensive backfield, you talk about Nate Hobbs as well as he's done, but just some of the youth there. I also think that in that environment, the offensive line will struggle too to hear, and that'll be a really big challenge. Now we're through the first 6 weeks of the season, which includes a bye. Mo has the Raiders at 3-2. I have the Raiders at 4-1, so not far off. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go through the second third of the season and tell you where the Raiders net out there. We'll also touch on a little bit of news or a question about a lack of news in just a few minutes here as we roll on with Silver and Black today. You're with Mo, you're with Scott. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. Silver and Black today, our prediction show. Yes, you asked for it. You wanted it. We're giving it to you. Mo Moton, Scott Gulbransen back with you here. Thanks for joining us. Hey, make sure you follow us on Twitter. We love interacting with our listeners. He is at Mo Moton, MoeMoton. I am at LV Gully. And you can also follow the show, SNB Today, to check it out. Oh, by the way, Mo, I forgot to tell people. I tweeted it out over the weekend, the long weekend we just got through. But we will be back on the air on the radio in Las Vegas, too. So you'll be able to hear the show on Sundays, too. So if you miss some of it during the week, you can catch it on Sundays on the Bet 1140 at 7 a.m. Eastern if you're on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, Raider Nation, or somewhere in the middle, you can hear it at 9 a.m. on 98.5 The Fan, all part of the Odyssey family. So we're glad to be back on there as well. Mo, before we jump back into the rest of the predictions, quick question for you. The Raiders, and we saw a lot of teams jockeying between the final cuts and week one. Are you surprised by the Raiders not doing a ton? I mean, they brought some guys in, and of course they dropped some and added to the practice squad, but they seem pretty ready to go and set and happy with the roster they have.
I'm surprised from my perspective because I feel like they're still an offensive lineman short, and they should still bring in a veteran. Not surprised based on what Josh McDaniels said, I believe last week. He said, we have 8 offensive linemen, but we still have guys on the practice squad. So I feel like he's comfortable with the Raiders personnel and that unit. I'm not, but he's there every day. He's coaching the team. He's on the practice field. He would know more than I would know. But as I said during these predictions in the first third of the season, I'm a little concerned about that group. We'll see how it pans out, though.
Yes, as we will with everything. Okay, we're going to jump back in now. We have, again, just to recap, through 6 weeks. Remember, week 6 is the bye, so you're talking about 5 games. Mo has the Raiders at 3-2. I have the Raiders at 4-1. Our one difference was the beginning of the season, the Chargers. Week 1, this week coming up. Mo has them losing. I have them winning down in Los Angeles. And we both have the Raiders losing in week 5 going into the bye to the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium. So there we are. Now we're on to week 7. Go ahead. You got something?
One quick note about that Chargers game that I didn't mention in my prediction. After what the Raiders did to the Chargers in week 18 last year, you don't think Justin Herbert and those guys have that game circled? They're going to be, not that the Raiders won't be motivated, but the Chargers have a bad taste in their mouth. The Raiders basically booted them from the playoff picture.
Yeah.
They're going to be motivated to win that football game, especially at home.
You say he's going to try to go more than tie. He doesn't want the tie.
Yeah, Justin Herbert's not going to want the tie at that point. He's going to go for the jugular in that game.
Oh, I hope everybody got that one. I think they did. Our fans are smart. They know. Okay, so we jump back in on this one. This is an easy one for me, Mo. The Houston Texans are not a good football team. I like the Raiders against the Texans at home, especially, too, here to take that one. I think actually they win that one big in week 7.
Yeah, no reason for the Raiders to lose this game. They have an extra week to prepare. You said it, probably the bottom team in the AFC South. I think the Texans are going to win maybe 5 games, maybe 6 if Davis Mills happens to be of any substance. But, yeah, this is a game the Raiders should win handily. The Titans just don't have it yet. Lovie Smith's over there. He knows Nate Hobbs. They're going to shake hands before the game, and then Nate Hobbs is going to pick off a pass and make Lovie Smith mad. So Raiders win this game handily by about 10, 12 points.
Yes, I like that one. Okay, then we take a look here. You see week 8. They go down to the Big Easy. I don't think this one will be easy, Mo. You agree with me? How does this one net out at the, I forget, it used to be Mercedes Superdome. Now I think it's something else. I forgot what they named it after or what the sponsor is. But are they going to go down? And is Jameis Winston with huge smiles from you and Kelly, is he going to go out there and ball and make this Raiders team pay down in the Big Easy, or are the Raiders going to take this one?
Now, you see, this is one of these Twitter conversations. People like to laugh at Jameis Winston because they see him do all these quirky workouts and stuff to improve himself. But Jameis Winston, before he tore his ACL, I believe he had ligament damage elsewhere, he was legit. He wasn't turning the ball over. I believe he only had 3 picks, 14 touchdowns. Beat the Packers in week 1 last season, kind of snuck up on them and surprised them. Jameis Winston, I'm not saying he's a top 10 quarterback or a top 15 quarterback, but don't overlook him when he has weapons around him. I remember a few years ago, he threw for over 5,000 yards, had 33 touchdown passes because he had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, had a good receiving core. Now, of course, he also had 30 interceptions, but as I said, got the LASIK surgery for his eye. He's improved. Last season, he was more efficient with the football, didn't turn the ball over as much. I think they shocked the Raiders out there in New Orleans and win this football game.
There you go. So I also have them losing to the Saints. I know, Raider Nation, you're ready to flip off the phone. You're ready to flip off literally with your hand, Mo and I. But I think, too, that remember, this is the first of 2 games going out east, technically. Even though I believe New Orleans is in the central time zone, it's still a trip. And the next week, they have to go to Jacksonville. So I just don't like this one for the Raiders. I think after I have them 5-1, then going into this one and losing at 5-2, I think that's just going to happen. I think it's a tough one for them, and I do think that the Saints are a little better than now. Some people, I've been seeing these predictions about the Saints going to the Super Bowl, which I think is ridiculous, but I think they are better than people are giving them credit for. And I think the Raiders will learn that. So through 8 weeks now, by the way, Mo, you have something
really
else?
Quick, though.
Yes.
The other thing is, who do the Saints have in their secondary who knows Derek Carr very well? Tyrann Mathieu.
Yes.
Tyrann Mathieu gives Derek Carr issues whenever he's in the secondary.
Great
he's there
point.
in New Orleans now. And I think him knowing Derek Carr helps that Saints team. And don't forget, Michael Thomas is healthy. Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and Jarvis Landry being their wide receiver core, it's going to give that Raiders pass defense some issues.
Yes. So now, Mo, we meet. We both have the Raiders through 8 weeks at 5-2. Different paths to get there, but we both have them at, you have them at 4-3. I have them at 5-2. Mm-hmm. Hello. Math, as we learned last show, math is my challenge. So you have them at 4-3, I have them at 5-2. And then they stay out east, or they have to travel back east to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Jaguars will be better than people are giving them credit for. I think Trevor Lawrence will take his next step as an NFL quarterback, but I do believe the Raiders will be too talented and have too much. Coming off the loss at New Orleans, they're going to be hungry. They know that they had these 2 games on the road. Then they have to face what's going to be a tough Indianapolis team the next week. It's a must-win for them. I say must-win from a morale standpoint. So I think they go to Jacksonville and they hand it to the Jaguars pretty easily. I'm going to say by 10 to 15 points.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. They stay out east. Jacksonville is going to be an improved team, but they're not going to be as good as the Raiders. I know Doug Peterson's won a Super Bowl before. Josh McDaniels has been with the Super Bowl team, so there's a little bit of history there. They know each other.
Yes.
They met in the Super Bowl as offensive coordinator, head coach. I think Josh McDaniels is going to remember that. He won't say that during the press conference, but I'm sure he's going to remember that, and he's going to stick it to Doug Peterson, and the Jaguars and the Raiders take this game pretty handily.
Absolutely. And again, the Raiders have a tough schedule, and the travel. I mean, by the way, I forgot to mention that on the last show. That whole thing with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh doesn't play a game outside the Eastern time zone. How does that happen? Like, I guess if your last name is Rooney, you're good, right? You just get it. You get
some breaks.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, really. I mean, I don't know how it happens. It'd be interesting. I know how they do the schedule, and I've heard the whole process. And obviously now it's much more automated than it used to be. It just it's crazy. It just puts off the appearance of impropriety, I believe, to have one team never leave a time zone. It's kind of crazy. But that's the way it goes. Them the breaks, as they say. Okay, now we go on to week 10. The Raiders go back after being on the road 2 weeks in a row. They go back to Las Vegas, and they get to face a tough Indy team in the Colts with Matt Ryan at quarterback. And this is a team that I think a lot of people look at in the AFC West, or excuse me, the AFC. They're not giving Matt Ryan enough credit. I think a lot of people think Matt Ryan's washed. I don't think he's washed, especially behind that offensive line and that team that they have there with the running game and so on. This is going to be a tough one, Mo. It's one of the games I struggle with the most. How do you see the Raiders netting out in Las Vegas against Indy?
This is my concern with this game, and Raider fans are going to get ready to throw things at me or shut their phone off, as you said, or TV or computer off. But the Colts offensive line is one of the best in the league. Danico Archie, who Raiders fans are familiar with, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye is going to be coming along his second year, and then Darius Leonard, or he goes by Shaquille Leonard now, changed his name. If he's healthy on the field, that's a tough defense to beat. And on the back end, you got Stephon Gilmore and Kenny Moore. Gus Bradley, I know, knows the Raiders, and the Raiders know him, and he's kind of rigid with his scheme. You know, he's going to play cover 3 for most of the time, so you can kind of plan around that. And I'm sure Josh McDaniels will make note. But I just worry about, this is another game where I worry about the Raiders' offensive line, simply because the Colts can run a bunch of stunts and twists, and it could cause a lot of problems up front. So I'm going to give it to the Colts, even though I don't see their offense as explosive. They're running with one wide receiver, basically, Michael Pittman Jr. We'll see what Alec Pierce becomes. But I think they're going to run the ball, and they're going to give the Raiders problems up front, on the ground, in the trenches on both sides. I have the Colts winning a narrow one by maybe 1 or 2 points.
There you go. I also have the Colts taking this game, Mo, and I think it could be one of those games. This is going to be a character moment for this team this year, and I say that because losing to the Colts at home, based on my prediction, that will have meant they have lost 2 of 3 games, right? And I had them going in, coming out of the bye at 4-1. They win the first game coming out of the bye. They're 5-1, and then they lose 2 of the next 3. Okay, so they sit at 6-3. You have them at 5-4 through week 10 of the NFL. So to me, that's for all the reasons you mentioned. I just think that team. It's you talk about matchup issues, and I think there's matchup issues, especially on that line against the even if the Raiders' offensive line does well. I think it's just a lot to ask, and I think that they just don't match up well with Indy. And I think the Colts take a game and disappoint the faithful at Allegiant Stadium out there in Las Vegas. Okay, then we go to Week 11, as I'm showing up on the screen if you're watching. The Raiders then go to Mile High City to take on your favorite donkeys, the Denver Broncos. Mo, I like this one. Again, 2 of 3 have lost 2 of 3. This team, Josh McDaniels as a coach, is going to have a big challenge. This is another game I think they need to get. Not only that, but to stay in the AFC West race, because we don't know what's going to be happening with the other teams. You can read Mo's predictions on Bleacher Report around the rest of the AFC West. But to stay in the race and to look at the possibility of winning the AFC West, they're going to have to go to Denver and win that. Then they have Seattle the next week, which is favorable. So to me, going in, beating Russell Wilson in his own house is going to be big, and I think they're going to do it. I think this is another one of those turning points in the season because they need to stop the bleeding and move forward so that they can get hot towards the end of the year and turn it up at a time of the season when teams that are going to go to the playoffs do so.
I think this is going to be their first losing streak or consecutive losses for the season. I basically have the Raiders and the Broncos splitting. And as you heard in the first segment, I have the Raiders winning at home against the Broncos as the Broncos are trying to gel. At this point in the season where they're playing the Broncos in the second game, the Broncos should have gelled at this point. They should have most of it together. Not perfect, but they should have at least their offense together with Russell Wilson humming in that offense with Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, as I mentioned, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. They have a really good offensive line. I think the Denver Broncos offensive line better than the Raiders offensive line. So again, at this point, I think Denver is going to have their offense gelled, and they'll be able to pull this one out against the Raiders at home. It's hard to go into Mile High and beat that team, especially when they have a capable quarterback. They have a top, 8 quarterback, you can say, at worst. They're going to win this game and split the series.
Wow. I'm the half full guy, remember. Just kidding. All right, so just to recap, Mo has the Raiders losing 2 in a row, okay, losing to Indy at home and then going on the road and losing to the Broncos, and it is a tough place to play. But again, I don't know if I'm trying to write the Rudy Part 2 or what I'm trying to do, but I think they go there and they win it. I have them at 7-3. Mo's got them at 5-5. So at that point, Week 11, they would be a 500 football team, and we can talk about implications of that later. Okay, Week 12, before we go to our next break. Week 12, Mo, the Seattle Seahawks. This is a team that there's no question is in complete rebuild mode. They have DK Metcalf. Past that, there's a lot of question marks. Geno Smith heading into the season as their quarterback, clearly not their quarterback of the future, as he is now the guy there in Seattle with Russell Wilson. In Denver, it's always tough to play on the road in the NFL. I don't care who you're playing. Going up to Seattle, how do you see this one coming out as well?
Old division rivals squaring off in the old AFC West, I believe. So
yes.
Seahawks, as you said.
People under 30 probably don't realize that, but you're right.
Yes. If you're a younger audience, you don't remember the Raiders and the Seahawks. There's a bit of a rivalry there too, by the way. But you said it. The Seahawks are rebuilding. They have weapons with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, but they don't have a quarterback to get them the football with consistency. I watched Geno Smith for a number of years out here in New York when he played for the Jets. Had an incident when his teammate got punched in his jaw and never got his job back. I don't think it's going to happen for him now. The Seahawks are going to be looking at a top 3 to 5 pick in the draft in 2023. They're going to drop this game. They're only going to win maybe 3 or 4 games this season. So the Raiders should go to Seattle and win this game by double-digit points.
Yes, and yes. I have them now through 12 weeks. The optimist. I know some of you will love me for it. I'm not trying to earn brownie points. I have the Raiders at 8-3. Mo has the Raiders at 6-5, so back above 500 at Week 12. That's where we're going to leave it until we come back. We're going to go off, hear from our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to get through the rest of the season and walk you where we think the Raiders will be. Will they finish strong, or will we see that ugly late season swoon? Even though it's a new staff and a lot of new players, do we see that happen again? It's a tough stretch for the Raiders if you look down the stretch of the 2022 season. You're listening to Silver and Black Today with Mo Moton. I'm Scott Gulbransen. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. Silver and Black Today, the prediction show. Yes, we are giving you our thoughts about what the Raiders will do. Of course, it's all guesses based on what we know, which is not as much as a GM, but we know some stuff. You know, Mo covers the NFL for Bleacher Report across the league, as well as the Raiders on sportsnot.com. I host this show, and I'm just a genuinely good guy, no matter what you heard. So we're just going off of that, and we are talking Raiders football again on Silver and Black Today. Thank you again for subscribing, and thank you for watching on YouTube if you're there, or if you're listening to us on the radio, wherever it may be. We appreciate you guys being here, as always. Thank you. Reminder, this is Tuesday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we will have our mailbag show. Yes, Mo, we have more questions, more food questions, a different type of question this week, as well as Raider football. Always fun to interact with the listeners with the mailbag show.
It always is. And again, if you got a cool food question, last time it was flapjacks or pancakes, send them in. Don't be shy. We'll answer a food question mixed in with all the football talk.
Yes, and not only did we had a gal named Rosie who emailed in the question about pancakes or flapjacks, and then we brought up hotcakes, was a whole different wild card. But she did respond with her answer, so we'll hear from her on the mailbag show, as well as some longtime listeners who emailed this week for the first time. So we're excited about that. Join us tomorrow. That's on Wednesday. So all of our shows hit at 6 a.m. East Coast time, 3 a.m. on the Pacific. So on your way in to work on Wednesday morning, just like you're doing right now, listening to us on Tuesday morning, you can listen to Mailbag on Wednesday. And then Thursday morning, we'll have our brand new show, which will preview the Charger game heading into the weekend. And just a reminder, we will have a live post-game show every week. The Raiders are on the schedule, and that will be live on YouTube as well as Facebook and Twitch. We will also have that available in the podcast format, as always, immediately after the game. So as soon as we're done with the show, you'll be able to listen to that on audio. So thank you for being with us. Okay, Mo, let's jump back in now to our schedule prediction, or our Raiders 2022 prediction, as we look at the next, to me, the gauntlet of the season coming up. Okay, Week 13. Oh, reminder, Mo has the Raiders through Week 12 at 6-5. I have them at 8-3. Yes, 8-3. Week 13, they say hello again to Justin Herbert and the Chargers, this time in Las Vegas. This is early December, and the Raiders go into that game, obviously looking back to last year and that exciting Week 18 game, but now face the Chargers at home. In your scenario, a game above 500 to stay relevant in the AFC West, probably have to win that one. I have them at 8-3. Do the Chargers come in and return the favor, in my book, and beat the Raiders, or are the Raiders able to split and win at home against the Bolts?
I think it's going to be gut check time for the Raiders in this game. I have them losing the season opener against the Chargers. I think they feel like we can't get swept by a division rival, especially in the tight AFC West. At this point in the season, I don't want to assume guys are going to be hurt. I don't want to wish injury on anyone, but we all know Joey Bosa's history. We all know Derwin James' history. Those guys are going to miss a few games every year. Khalil Mack, I believe he's 31 years old. Missed several games last year with the Bears. So I'm not counting on a guy or two being hurt for the Raiders to win this game. But I just think that as the season wears on, the Raiders would have either addressed their offensive line because they would have seen it as a weakness, or the Chargers aren't going to be completely healthy and they're not going to get the Chargers at full strength because it's the war of attrition, and you got to have depth. And I think the Chargers front line, their defensive line, was poor last year. Their run defense was not good. I think the Raiders are going to grind them down in this game. Use Josh Jacobs, use Zamir White, get Amir Abdullah involved, Brandon Bolden involved. Get those guys involved, grind down the Chargers defensive line. Slow the game down. May not be as high scoring as the first game. You may get like a 27-24, 24-21 outcome, but I think the Raiders control the game with the ground attack and win this one at home against the Chargers.
Interesting. I'm taking the opposite approach on this one. I actually think this is another shootout between the Raiders and the Chargers. And I think in this one, again, when you get deeper in the season, we're just completely guessing here. But to your point about the offensive line, about attrition and injuries, it happens on both sides to both teams. But I think that Raider offensive line might not give the opportunity for Derek Carr to have enough time, might keep the score down. And I say shootout, and I think it'll be a close game. And I also think that Raiders secondary, depending on how it holds up, could be tested at home again in the dome of Allegiant Stadium. And I have the Chargers actually taking this one and moving the Raiders to 8-4. You have them winning and going to 7-5 into Week 13. This Charger-Raider rivalry, I think, is on the cusp of becoming a really great one. And that's why I have the kind of expect the unexpected, which is normally I would say, well, they'll split like you did, one on the road, one at home, and you win in each in your own house. This one I have at the opposite on that one. Okay, Week 14, the Raiders go back to L.A., and they face the Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions, and that team, which seems to have pretty much gotten better. And if they haven't had the Super Bowl hangover, a tough one, Mo, to go on the road again after you just, in my book, lost, or on the emotion of winning against the Chargers at home, you then have to go back to L.A. to face the Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, this is a tough matchup. I think this is the game where you might see Aaron Donald wreck it because Andre James, even though he's their starter, he seems like he's going to be the Week 1 guy. Him going against Aaron Donald on the interior scares the crap out of me. And I think this is a game you might see Aaron Donald get 3 sacks because he's just going to be that much stronger than he's just going to overpower Andre James. And we all know, we don't know this, but quarterbacks will tell you that they don't like when they feel pressure off the middle. And I think Derek Carr is going to feel a lot of that in this game with Aaron Donald up there. It's going to be interesting to see how Jalen Ramsey matches up against Devontae Adams. Is he going to follow him? Or is he going to stay in one side of the field? But I think this game will be one up front with Aaron Donald dominating the Raiders' offensive line.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be too big of a task. And I think that Rams offense with Cooper Kupp, I think they're going to have a good day as well. I think it's just a lot to ask of this Raider team to go down to Los Angeles. And I have them, this for me would be their first 2-game losing streak to move their record to 8-5. You have them at 7-6. We're getting closer again with our predictions here, Mo. Different paths again, but just tough to go down and play in that house. I understand if it's a Charger game, a little bit different to me with the Rams. And the Rams, I think, are going to have a pretty good year. The NFC is a lot harder to predict in my view, but the Rams seem to have gotten better in certain areas. Yes, they have some question marks, and if they don't have the Super Bowl hangover, and their quarterback can stay healthy in Matt Stafford at that time, because we know he's got the elbow issues. If that's all working for them, I think it's a tough game for the Raiders to go down and win. All right, then we get to week 15, Mo, and we see here on the schedule, it is the New England Patriots. So this is the Belichick meets his Padawan in Josh McDaniels as the Patriots roll into Las Vegas the week before Christmas. And after seeing the Patriots in the preseason, Mo, I know a lot can change. Preseason is not indicative of how all teams do, but I think that the Patriots defense will be a lot better. I think their offense is going to continue to struggle. I think the Raiders win this one, but with the crafty coach they have, it'll probably be closer than people expect, but I think the Raiders eke it out to go to 9-5.
Yes, the student beats the master in this scenario. I said this early August. I was on another show, and I said I think the Patriots could possibly finish last in the AFC East. I think their offense is going to be that bad. I think Mac Jones is going to take a step back. Now the Jets don't have the quarterback now, and I don't feel too good about the Jets either. But I don't see the Patriots winning more than 6 games this year. I think they're going to fall to the bottom. I think as the further away they get from the Tom Brady era there in New England, the further they drop in the AFC. And I think as the AFC has gotten better, the Patriots have gotten worse. So I feel like the Raiders should win this game. I don't think it's going to be close as you think it is. I actually think the Raiders are going to rout the Patriots.
There you go. We're on the same page. I have the Raiders through 15 weeks at 9-5. Mo has them at 8-6. So we're tracking along pretty nicely here. Now, Mo, here comes a part of the season where I think is just, again, starting with that game, the Patriots game's kind of the last, I wouldn't call it a lull. All professional football games are difficult to win, but nonetheless, I think they're good. They're going to have the easiest way against the Patriots. Then the night before Christmas, and yes, we will have my 4th annual Night Before Raider Christmas poem, so don't miss it. But they go in on Christmas Eve into Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. Now, Mo, for those who don't know a lot about this Steelers team, talk about, the turnover at quarterback. They have a lot of young players there. And I think a lot of people are looking at this game and think it's going to be a pretty easy one. I don't think so.
It's not going to be an easy one. But what I will say is that their defense is going to be a little different on the back end. They have Levi Wallace, who's the number 2 cornerback in Buffalo last year, and they have Akilla Witherspoon, who played well, but he played well in a very short window, a very short sprint. He filled in for Joe Hayden. So they have basically 2 cornerback 2s on the back end, kind of like how the Raiders would have had if they had kept Trayvon Mullen, maybe. But the Steelers defense is going to be something to watch. I don't think it's going to be as dominant. TJ Watt, although he hasn't missed a ton of games, he's been getting nicked up. He got nicked up in the preseason, I believe. Now, again, not wishing injury on anyone, but you see the pattern of injuries and bumps and bruises where he has to come out of the game. I believe he had to come out of the game when the Raiders played the Steelers last year. But at this point in the season, to get to the prediction, I think you're going to see Kenny Pickett at this point in the season, because I think the Steelers are eventually going to sink to the bottom of the AFC, and they're going to look at the young quarterback, who, by the way, played well in the preseason, and Kenny Pickett had the best quarterback rating out of the 3 when competing with Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky. I think Kenny Pickett is going to play in this game, and he's going to take his rookie bumps as normal rookies do, and the Steelers will struggle, and the Raiders will take this game.
There you go. So you have the Steelers going down to the Raiders on Christmas Eve, making it a nice Christmas for Raider Nation. I do as well. I think the Raiders go in there. And again, it's always tough to go back to that Eastern time zone. It's on a holiday, all that jazz. But I do think being on the air on a holiday, Christmas Eve, it's a big game. And I think the Raiders step up and win that and move to 10-5. Okay, week 17.
One thing, Scott, too.
Yes.
If you're going to pick one team that has a worse offensive line than the Raiders, it's probably the Pittsburgh Steelers, because the Steelers' offensive line right now is a complete mess. I know we haven't mentioned them a lot in these prediction segments, but this is the game that Max Crosby and Chandler Jones could both combine for about 6 sacks. They're going to dominate the trenches against that offensive line.
Absolutely. Okay, Mo, we're up to week 17 now. This is on New Year's Day in Las Vegas. The San Francisco 49ers, the old Bay Area rivalry, comes back, even though it technically doesn't geographically exist anymore. It's going to be a long time. People still don't like the 49ers. That hate will maybe never die. But the 49ers will come in. To me, this is a tough one because I can see the 49ers doing pretty well, but it's all going to be dependent on the quarterback. Does Trey Lance develop? Does he come along well enough to lead this team? Now you're going to be in week 17. This is the Raiders and the 49ers. If things go well for the 49ers, both teams will be in the thick of trying to qualify for the playoffs. There's going to be a lot of attention. It's a New Year's Day game. It's tough for a young quarterback to go in and do that. I like the Raiders. Even if Trey Lance has a good season, a great season, I like the veteran, the wily veteran, Derek Carr. I like the Raiders defense. Chandler Jones, Max Crosby coming along. I like the running game against this team as well. And I like the Raiders to win this one in Las Vegas to start off 2023 at 1-0.
Man, you're making me seem like negative Nate here, Scott. I don't see it for the Raiders here simply because not to say Josh McDaniels and Kyle Shanahan probably two of the best offensive play callers in the game right now. But what Kyle Shanahan does so well is that he can run the ball in so many ways. He uses running backs, he uses Deebo Samuel, his wide receiver. And I just think I still, even though Jonathan Hankins should be healthy for most of the season, I just worry about the Raiders' run defense in some spots, especially when we have a creative offensive coordinator like Kyle Shanahan. The other thing is, I think this game is another one that's one of the trenches by the opposing team. 49ers usually have a strong front seven. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. They got two other first-rounders on that defensive line. I know Javon Kinlaw struggled, but I think him being healthy helps him. Also, you got Eric Armstead there. So their defense, 49ers defense, has been legit for most of the time that Kyle Shanahan has been there. And I think the Raiders are going to have issues scoring. And again, I think this game is going to be one in the trenches. And fans are going to look back and say, why didn't we address the offensive line a lot better in the offseason? Because I think that's what's going to cost them in this game.
There you go. All well thought out. And I agree on most of it. I just think for some reason, I don't know. I like the Raiders on New Year's Day in Vegas after everybody's hungover and hasn't slept the night before walking the streets of Las Vegas Boulevard. Okay, there you go. Going into the final week of the season, Mo has the Raiders at 9-7. I have the Raiders at 11-5. So you can see we have a 2-game separation there. Now, based on what you said earlier, Mo, and on splitting, I assume then you have the Raiders taking down the Chiefs in another week 18 AFC West battle?
Yes, I think the Raiders are going to make a trend of beating rivals in the last week of the season. They do it again in consecutive years. They beat the Chiefs just as they beat the Chargers in a tight one. I think this game is going to come down to the winner of that game could possibly qualify for the playoffs, and the loser might go home. Who knows? Maybe they both get in, do some type of wacky scenario, because as we all know, last week of the season, there are a whole bunch of scenarios. But whatever the case is, I think the Raiders win this one to end the season on a strong note, split with the Chiefs. Why? Simply because I think after seeing the Chiefs and how they operate with their new offense without Tyreek Hill, you make the adjustments, you go in the lab, and you scheme for that the second time around. You're at home, last week of the season, maybe with your season on the line, crowd is cheering, you got the home field, Raiders win the game, shock a lot of people, because I know a lot of people are probably going to pick the Chiefs to sweep that season series because the Chiefs have been the kings of that division, but I think the Raiders take that one.
Wow, so now you become the glass half full guy. Right, so you have the Chiefs losing in Las Vegas to the Raiders, which means you have the Raiders and finishing at 10-7, right?
That's correct.
10-7, maybe qualifying for the playoffs depending what happens. It's hard this year to know what's going to happen.
It's hard to know, and I've said this in previous pieces that game could be a winner gets in, sort of like last year with the Raiders and the Chargers. So if it's that scenario, the Raiders would get in and the Chiefs would miss it. Because I'm not too sold on the Chiefs' defense. I know their front line's probably going to be good. George Karlaftis has made plays in the preseason. They got Frank Clark. They got Chris Jones. But I'm still worried about they have a young secondary. And I think Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller could really pick on the Chiefs' secondary in that last game and take the win.
All right, so Raiders fans are like, yes, Scott, 11-5. Yeah, all right, so 12-5. No. I have them losing to the Chiefs at home. So, so now you can throw things at my image and burn me in effigy. So here's the thing. I think the Raiders, that last 6, if they lose to the Chiefs at home, like I'm predicting, the Raiders will go 500 over the last 6 games. It's a tough 6-game stretch. So I have them going 500 over that stretch, which is not exactly on fire going into the playoffs. But because they won a lot in that middle part of the schedule and they win week 1 against the Chargers, they finish at 11-6, which gives them a better chance to make the playoffs, in my view, even though they will have lost to the Chiefs at home in what will be a big game and a flex game a week after the beginning of the new year. I like that. I think they then are able to make the playoffs, and that sets up the revenge game against the Chiefs. Because how many times do teams lose to the same team 3 times in one season? Doesn't happen very often. Yeah. So that's where my optimistic piece is, even though it would be a bummer for Raider fans for their team to lose in that Week 18 battle in Las Vegas. But I like them to finish at 11-6, 1 game off. We're very close. And then get some revenge in the playoffs and maybe get some guys healthy if they were hurt down the stretch. But I just think the final 6 games, Mo, are tough. I don't disagree. I think they could go the way that you're saying they're going to go. But this ups and downs of the season, you just don't know. But to me, that's sort of where I net it out.
It's funny how we have it going down because we're close. We're only 1 off in predictions, but you have them finishing kind of in mediocrity, and I have them finishing strong because if you remember, middle of the show, I had them at 5-5, and Raider fans probably didn't want to hear from me after that, but I had them finishing the season 5-2, and to me, that just goes along with the players understanding what the coaching staff wants as the season goes on, things getting better, and being able to beat the tougher opponents because I don't expect it to be perfect to starting off the season. Because remember, even though Josh McDaniels is a great play caller, he's still a second-time head coach, first year with the team. Mm-hmm. Patrick Graham doesn't have a long history of being a defensive coordinator, so there's going to be a feeling out period. So they may not beat the competitive, tough teams early in the season, but I think they're going to beat the tough teams late in the season after they gel and get things going. So one question I want to ask you before I toss it back to you. How many teams do you have making the playoffs in the AFC West? Because I have every team in the AFC West going at least 10-7.
Wow. That's impressive. I have 3.
Okay. Let me guess, you're leaving out Denver.
I'm leaving out Denver, but here's the caveat with all of this, right? Because the next question I was going to ask you, Mo, was do the Raiders make the playoffs, which we're kind of getting into the back doorway that you brought up. And that is, I think that this division, and I said this back in the summer, because like you said, fans don't want to admit everyone else got better, but they have. Mm-hmm. And so I look at the division, and this thing could go either way. The Chargers could win the division. They could finish last. The Raiders could win the division. They could finish last. And everybody, because they're going to beat up on each other. And I know everybody gets sick of that. Well, it would beat up on each other. It happens, right? Not only that, but you look at the rest of the AFC. Okay, you look at the AFC North, you look at the AFC South, you look at these divisions, and they have good players, right? The AFC East is terrible, but you look at that AFC North. You talked about earlier. We don't know about what's going to happen in Cleveland, but you look at Cincinnati. Okay, you look at Baltimore. There's some good teams, and so I think there's a possibility, to your point, that you have a team wins 10 games and doesn't make it. Right? You could have all of them hitting 10-7 in the division and not be able to make the playoffs. So, but I like 3 because I think some of the teams in other divisions are being overvalued. I'll put it that way. And I think the Chargers, Raiders, and Chiefs are being undervalued as much as you can undervalue the Chiefs, of course, because they're the darling of the media as well across the nation. But to me, I like it. Maybe it's because I cover it and I'm being a little biased. I'll be happy to admit that. But I don't think the AFC West is going to be that good.
I do too, and I think 3 teams are going to make the playoffs. This is going to sound like a blazing hot take, and it may make its rounds on social media, but I actually think the Chiefs could miss the playoffs. And that sounds crazy to think that Patrick Mahomes doesn't make it.
Possible.
But I said it in that last game prediction. I'm not sold on their secondary. And when you're in a division with Derek Carr, with Justin Herbert, with Russell Wilson, and they all have weapons, you better have a decent secondary.
Right.
And I know that's part of my concern with the Raiders' young cornerback group. But the Chiefs having a rookie back there in Trent McDuffie, I'm sure they're hoping that he's going to be good, but he may not be his first year. And if he struggles, that's going to be a problem. They lose Tyrann Mathieu, who I know Chiefs fans are going to say, well, he wasn't that good. He's getting older. I think he was still an asset there. And when you go from Tyrann Mathieu to Justin Reed, who I watched him, and he's not a good tackler. Good at covering. But when it comes to tackling, he whiffs on a lot. I believe he's missed 14% of his tackles in his last 2 years. Wow. If you go at him, there's a chance that your wide receiver is going to get an extra 20 yards because he's going to whiff on the wrap up.
Yeah.
So I worry about that with the Chiefs. And I think there's a possibility they can miss the playoffs if they lose that last game to the Raiders.
The other thing about the Chiefs, and I know I said in my predictions that they would sweep the Raiders, but I also look at the offense. Okay, you have Patrick Mahomes, who happens to be my fantasy quarterback, so full disclosure, I want him to do well. But Juju and then Sky Moore. I mean, you have Travis Kelce, who's aging. And don't get me wrong, Travis Kelce's been great still, but to me, I think there's so many unknowns there that you could absolutely be right. The Chiefs could win 9 games, maybe even 8. Who knows? If that defense is especially bad, they could be an 8 or 9 win team. So I think that's why it was so hard to think through. And even though I had the Raiders finishing kind of with a whimper, I look at what they've done, and yes, the Raiders have question marks like all the teams in the West do. But with the talent on offense and then some of the defensive talent, I just think that you're right. The division is good, and it's going to be topsy-turvy. You're going to have different parts of the season where you think the Raiders are done, and then they're going to come back just like you had them at 500, and then they make a late season run, and so we could see that happen. And the rest of the rest of the conference, same thing, right? Baltimore. Everybody's counting on Baltimore coming back again. They seem like they should. Don't know. Is Cincinnati going to be as good? I think they're probably better than they were last year, but will they get the breaks they had? I mean, there's all those questions, Mo, that go into the ups and downs. It's why we watch the games so much, even our teams that aren't our own, because it's like a big soap opera. You just never know what's going to happen. The drama's always good.
Here's the thing with the AFC, right? Because I think the Bills are probably the class of the AFC. They're going to probably be the 1 seed. The Dolphins, I don't believe in Tua. He has the weapons, but I'm just a little weary of Tua. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. So the AFC East is probably going to have one playoff team. The AFC South, as I said, Tennessee's going to be falling off, and I think the Colts are going to be the leaders of that division. So they'll send one representative to the playoffs. Yep. Then I think the AFC North is going to have 2 teams. I like Baltimore and Cincinnati. So that means that leaves 3 teams for the AFC West to have in the playoffs.
Yep.
So that's why, people are like, well, if all 4 teams win 10 games, will they all make the playoffs? And the answer is no, because I have Baltimore making it. Lamar Jackson, right, assuming he's going to be healthy, that Baltimore team is going to be back on the playoff list as they always been with him and John Harbaugh. So at least one team, I think is going to miss that playoffs in the AFC West. It's just a matter of who. I just think it's going to probably be the Chiefs, which will shock a lot of people. But remember last year, the Chiefs struggled with Tyreek Hill on the roster. And it was because teams were playing too high against Patrick Mahomes, and he had to be able to take what the defense gave him instead of throwing the long, deep pass and going from the home run ball. He had to learn to be patient. And teams were forcing Patrick Mahomes to drive the length of the field, and he just couldn't do it. He would turn the ball over, not because of his fault, but because the ball bounced off a receiver's hands or be a fumble somewhere. But if you make the Chiefs drive the length of the field and dare Andy Reid to run the football, which he doesn't really do a lot, then the Chiefs are definitely vulnerable on the offensive side.
And it's interesting. The team I'm gonna predict in the AFC West that doesn't make the playoffs is the Chargers. And I know I said that. I think, and you know what it goes on? And again, you don't want anybody, knock on wood, you want anybody to get injured. I don't care how much you hate the team or whatever. No injury wishes by me at all, ever. But the record, they just don't stay healthy. I don't know what it is, if that franchise is cursed because their owner's a boob or whatever. It's just I always see them with such great promise that they're told, going back to my fan days as a Charger fan, and they never fulfill it. And so it's sort of like the modern version of the Cubs, right, on the baseball side. The Chargers seem to just be that. And so that's the one team I think that's going to miss it. Now, I know most people are going to pick the Broncos. I've heard most people nationally pick the Broncos. I like Russell Wilson. I just do. Mm-hmm. I think the guy, off the field, sometimes he bugs me because he's a little pretentious, but he's a great ball player. I think he's healthy. He's got a lot to prove. He wants to prove to Seattle that they should have years ago sided with him with Pete Carroll and given him what he wanted, and they didn't. They sent him instead where he wanted to go somewhere else, and that was Denver. So I think the Broncos will actually net out better than the Chargers.
That's pretty interesting you just say the Chargers, and because I actually, full disclosure, I actually have the Chargers winning the division 11-6.
You got to read Mo's piece,
But I will say that, and I mentioned this during our prediction segment, that game against the Colts, I can really see that going into overtime and going either way, because those two teams usually play each other very well, whether they play in Las Vegas or they play in Indianapolis. So I can easily see the Raiders going 11-6. Now, if I was going to make a prediction, I'd go 10-7, but 10-6, 10-7, 11-6 seems to be where I settle, with that Colts game being the swing game that can go either way.
Yeah, that's why I know we're not getting into predicting the whole league, but that's why I like Buffalo in the Super Bowl. I mean, they're in the AFC East, which is, again, crap. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins, depending to your point about Tua, they could be better, but they're not going to compete with the Bills. And so I like Buffalo going to the Super Bowl. NFC side, I would pick the Rams again, just because I can't see anybody else that is emerging that I think can beat them if they are as good as they were last year.
I actually have the Bucks going to the Super Bowl against the Bills.
Well,
and a lot of people say, injuries? "Oh, Tom Brady again." And I'm like, think about this. He retires briefly, kind of, sort of. It was like a few weeks, right?
For fun,
he steps away from the game. He comes back, and not everyone again is saying, "Oh, Tom Brady's washed." And he gets on the podium. He says, "I got a lot going on in my life," and everyone's like, "Yep, there's a downfall of Tom Brady." But you remember, every time we think the downfall of Tom Brady is going to happen, it just doesn't happen. And Todd Bowles, I know people give him a lot of crap for his job out there in New York, but he had Ryan Fitzpatrick, he had Bryce Petty, he had Sam Darnold as his quarterback, he had Josh McCown as his quarterback. Now he has Tom Brady, and he's already got that defense performing at a top 5 level. So now he's the head coach. He'll continue to have a top 5 defense, and Brady will continue to work with Byron Leftwich, who's there under Bruce Arians. So that offense is going to change. They added Julio Jones. I actually think Brady is going to revive Julio Jones for a year or two while he's out there, and they're going to get back to the Super Bowl.
I don't disagree with the Julio Jones piece and that Tom Brady will have another good year. I just think they've had a lot of injuries. I think there's a lot of unknowns for them. I could not pick them today. Now, if that rectifies itself, and to your point, Julio Jones is back to being a top-tier wide receiver, then I could see them doing that too. So I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. I'll put it that way. But that's where we have it. So
Scott, really quick question for you then. So you have the Raiders in the play. Do you have the Raiders in the playoffs? And if you do, how you have them finally winning a game? Because that's going to be the thing. If the Raiders make the playoffs, it's going to be time for Derek Carr to win a playoff game, because it'll be like, okay, how many years are you going to be in the league and not win a playoff game, especially with the weapons that he has?
So I do, and again, this is where I think the wannabe movie maker from my childhood comes up, and that is I see them making the playoffs, and because the division, to your point about finishing 10-7, 11-5, whatever, same ballpark, they have to face Kansas City in the first round. They're going to play them 2 weeks in a row, and they're going to beat the Chiefs to win their playoff game.
Now, Raider fans would love that. they would definitely, but you know what's going to happen? Amazing. The national media is going to pick. You know who the national media is going to side with?
Oh yeah, of course.
So the Raiders would definitely love that and say, well, we're gonna, we need to beat, especially if you have them sweeping, we're losing the season series by a sweep. Hard, as you said, hard to beat a team 3 times in one season usually, and this happened, I believe, with the Saints and the Bucks last year. The Saints beat the Bucks during the regular season twice.
Yep.
But once they got to the playoffs, the Bucks won that game. So to your point, I can see that.
Well, and not only that, but I do believe that, especially on the defensive side, like you said, and again, offense with the Chiefs, we don't know yet, but I just think that the Raiders, as they mature through the season under Patrick Graham on defense, will get better, right? If they can stay healthy, they'll get better. And I think that revenge game against the Chiefs, and what better way to win your first playoff game since 2002 than to beat the Chiefs after they beat you twice. I just think that for whatever reason, the stars align, that piano, it becomes off the back of Raider Nation as they win their first playoff game against Kansas City and exercise all those demons.
And I'm with you. I actually think the Raiders are going to win a playoff game this year, assuming they do get in with that 10-7 record. Because the thing is, we cannot have a conversation where we're saying Derek Carr is going into his 10th year and he hasn't won a playoff game. Because then the critics are definitely going to come out and say, oh, he has Devontae Adams, he has Darren Waller, he has Hunter Renfrow, Josh McDaniels comes over, he has a run game, he has this, he has that. How come he hasn't won a playoff game yet? And then we're going to go through that whole conversation because remember, there's this small window where the Raiders can get out of his contract. And we'll be saying, do the Raiders move on from Derek Carr because he couldn't win a playoff game and get a younger quarterback? And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to hate that discussion if it happens. So Derek Carr and the Raiders need to win a playoff game this year.
Especially if they do what you said and they go 10-7 or what I said and they go 11-6. You know, you have a veteran quarterback 11-6, you don't win a playoff game, and so you want to get rid of him, like especially after making the playoffs 2 years in a row. And yes, there gets a point where even if a quarterback takes you, I mean, remember Andy Dalton taking the Bengals to the playoffs all the time, they could never win a game. And I'm not comparing the two, I'm just saying. So yes, that question will come up. That's why a win against the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs, all that goes away. And suddenly it's, you know, the skies open up, Raider Nation feels really good, the Modelo's colder, you know, all of that is better. And so that's how I see it going down. But again, I don't know. That's predictions are tough, Mo, but we were close and had them in different spots getting hot. So it'll be good. But we appreciate everybody asking to do that. So it's always fun. All right. We are now done with this Tuesday edition of Silver and Black today. Mo, we're going to be back with the mailbag tomorrow. And then on Thursday, our buddy Nick Cotherell will be joining us. We'll preview the Charger game. We'll give you our prediction for the game, which you kind of heard already, but we'll see what happens between now and Thursday. Hey, it's a day and a half. You just never know what can happen. But we'll talk more about that as well and any other Raider news coming up. Mo, we'll talk to you tomorrow for the mailbag.
And hopefully we'll talk to our fans if they haven't, shut us out because we don't have the Raiders going 17-0. Sorry if we don't, but we do have the Raiders having a winning record. And we both actually think the Raiders win a playoff game this year. So there's the bright side of that.
We do. Absolutely. So, hey, we didn't have them going 7-9 or 7-10, excuse me. I always forget about the last game. But anyway, we're going to give it to you how we think, and we'll see who's right, who's wrong, where we get it right and where we get it wrong. It'll be interesting to watch. Anyway, thank you all for joining us here on Silver and Black today. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you're listening to us there. Whether you're on Apple, wherever, just hit subscribe and we'll be delivered right to your phone whenever you want to listen to some Raiders football. On YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That's an important piece. If you do that, every time we go live, you can come and join us on every video inside the live chat. Mo and I are in the live chat. We're taking food takes. We're doing all kinds of things in there, having lots of fun with all of you. So again, thank you for all that. For Mo, I am Scott. We will talk to you next time here on Silver and Black today. Have a good one.